was kind of weird, but figured since I played guitar on my last video, I should probably go ahead and play it in this one as well. Kind of like the last video, the guitar is kind of appropriate. So, in the last video we had, at least in one of the reviews, we had a rock and roll slasher killer. The driller killer with the giant drill guitar. Well, this is a throwback to 1980s movies, 1980s slasher movies. This, of course, is Lake Nowhere. Of course, I am Steve from Resurrection Reviews. Wanted to let you know. So, like, when this came up, I was kind of like, well, it's less than an hour. I don't know if it's actually a slasher movie because I've never seen it. There's some of these that I haven't seen and I'm seeing for the first time, and this is one of them. But I was wondering, because I really had never really heard anything about this, maybe just in passing. But it turns out it is somewhat of a slasher movie, somewhat of an Evil Dead type ripoff. Again, I'm doing this in front of the window. I know I shouldn't be doing that, but I'm doing it anyway. So I don't really like Nowhere. The killer's really cool. He looks really cool, acts really cool. The mythology behind this whole situation is really cool. This idea that there's a killer out there in the woods that made some type of either deal with the devil or some kind of god or something like that where he has to sacrifice people. That's kind of in this. There's also an element of sort of Evil Dead style possession that's going on here from probably some ancient pagan demon. I like a lot of this. I don't like the sort of subgenre blending, the whole idea of, mixing the Evil Dead style possession, dead coming back movie with the slasher movie. I don't really like that much. Most of the dialogue's kind of sucky. Most of the acting isn't great. The girl who is, obviously the final girl, they did kind of throw me for a loop for kind of a twist that they did with her, both sort of in the middle of this 51 minute movie. They did kind of throw me for a loop there. So I kind of liked that. There's a couple things in this movie that, it's definitely not a bad movie. It's obviously filmed on some type of video or something like that, some old beat up camera, or they put it through a filter to make it look like that. This whole idea is that it's a movie from the 1980s that never came out in the 1980s. One of those throwback slashers, something like The Sleeper or something like that, that came out. But I gotta say, I don't really like it, and I think the major problem with it is that it's too short. It does have some nudity in there, more nudity than I was kind of expecting. I like kind of the novelty of this movie, but it's not something that I really enjoy. Overall, it's not a bad movie necessarily, but I just didn't get a lot of enjoyment out of it for whatever reason. The camera work's really bad, but it's kind of supposed to be like that. And in some ways it seems like they're trying to mimic the 80s style. Well, of course that's what they're trying to do. But in some ways they don't hit it. They're not straight on with it. There's a definite style to the way things were filmed back in those days, as opposed to now. This came out in, I think, 2016 or something like that. And at the very least, it was fairly recent. And I gotta say, despite the fact that, it's not from that era, it's trying to accurately present that era. And that's not really what they're doing. Some of the special effects feel very sort of low-grade, sleazy, straight-to-video, shot-on-video horror movie. They got that kind of feel. This is no Tom Savini. This does seem somewhat appropriate for the time, but it also seems like that might have just been all that they had money for, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, for whatever reason, I didn't really enjoy this movie. I liked the opening, which is kind of like you're watching a VHS tape. I like the killer and the lore behind it. The dialogue in general is not very good. The acting in general is not very good. I do think the final girl gives an okay performance, but me just being the person that I am with such stringent rules as I have for final girls and for the slasher genre, they make a big misstep by showing her naked. That's a big no for me. Just, that's a personal thing. That's a thing that it's a standard that I hold the final girl to, that just like movies like, say, The Fun House or the first Slumber Party Massacre that have the final girl showing nudity, those movies are not, they don't really appeal to me because I have such definite opinions about the final girl, who she's supposed to be, what she's supposed to do, what she's supposed to embody, which is sort of this innocence that somehow works in her favor. Not because they're saying the people that have sex are evil or anything, but because specifically she's not encumbered by all these different distractions like sex and drugs and drinking and all this different stuff. And you know, I occasionally have an alcoholic beverage, which I guess means that I would never make it through an 80s horror movie. But you know, at the same time, I'm not a final girl. Final girls are supposed to do a certain thing, and that was another thing that bugged me, by the way, that she was drinking and smoking pot. And you know, I guess they somewhat subvert it with this kind of twist at the ending, but it just didn't hit it for me. There's some stuff in there that I really like, but there's some stuff that I'm really just not up on. And I think also it's kind of too short. You know, they needed to stretch it out a little bit more. Everything seemed sort of, you know, it went like 0 to 60 in a couple minutes, you know. Well, for this metaphor, 0 to 60 in about a second, you know. It just, they didn't do it right for me, in my opinion. I'm not trying to say anything negative necessarily about the filmmakers. I'm sure they're fine people and whatever, but I'm not a fan of Lake Nowhere, so I can't really recommend it. But if you do want to watch it, it is on Amazon Prime for free if you have a Prime membership, or if you're leeching off of your brother-in-law like I am. So there you go. Sorry, no drink today. I have a coffee cup over there, but it is empty. I'm only having one coffee today because there's a possibility of soda tonight, which is primo. Yeah, my wife and I are going to be having a nice little movie night here at home. Who knows, we might even post a video review, which would be totally outside of this type of movie, because what we'll be watching is How to Train Your Dragon 3. And I really like these movies. She really, really likes these movies. So this is going to be a big thing for us. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. I'm going to make a little pillow fort. Going to hang around, have some good fun. So, but yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'm going to see if I can take you out on a riff, but it might suck because this is not pre-recorded. This is entirely live and, you know, stuff. I got nothing else, except maybe this, which I'm fairly certain was out of key. Rock on. See you guys later. Bye-bye.